What's going on, guys? Dan with PC Tech Hustle coming at you with another video. Today we are out in my garage, got some parts out on my workbench. I got a motherboard and a GPU that are particularly dirty that I just picked up from a recent parts hustle. So I figured today I'd make some content for you in regards to that. I've never really covered how to go about cleaning up parts and doing that properly. So let's get cracking into that. Alright, so I'm going to take you in a little closer here. Before I go over the tools and things that I use in regards to cleaning, I just kind of want to show you guys the parts. Now this motherboard isn't terrible actually. It might be actually kind of hard to capture on the camera, but there's some dust buildup inside like the USB ports. You can see some dust that's accumulated along the PCIe slots and the heat sinks, and the RAM could use some spiffing up. But I also want to kind of use this as an example of where I've actually done some deeper cleaning. So I'm going to actually take out the processor, obviously clean up the thermal paste there, and open up the socket and show you how I cleaned that up with a soft steel brush and some alcohol. But really what really got kind of the idea flowing for this video is this gnarly graphics card. So I bought this actually on eBay. I was looking for an RX 570, RX 580. Couldn't really find one locally, so I resorted to eBay, which actually wasn't a bad for price, but let's see if we can focus in on the nastiness that's going on here. Yeah, you can see some dirt there. There's actually just, yeah, there we go. It's like just fine layers of dust and debris all over this video card. So most of this video is probably going to cover the video card, and here's where it's really bad. We can zoom in here. This heatsink. I mean, good lord. I think somebody might have had a cat or something, but it is nasty. So I'm going to cover clean. Basically, we're going to completely disassemble this card. Yeah, I know I might get some smoke here in the comments that, hey, you know, you're going to void your warranty, take these off. I've kind of seen some content, read some content in regards to that. I think it's worth it, even if warranty does get voided, but I honestly, I highly doubt it. I'm not sure if that is really something that the manufacturer would hold over you. I mean, this card is near a fire hazard with the amount of dust and debris that is in there, caked into the hot parts of the video card. So I'm going to clean it up, and I'm going to show you guys. Before we dig into the nitty-gritty of cleaning, I'll just quickly cover my 3-step process for cleaning computer parts that I use every single time. So step 1 will be dusting. We're going to knock off all the nasty, loose junk that's tucked into the tight spots of the components. Doing so, you could use a dust can like this, compressed canned air, or in my case, I have a air compressor that I have. Either one will work fine. Only thing I could just say, just as to err on a bit of side of caution with an air compressor, is with fans. So don't just blast 150 psi into a fan and overspin it up to 10, 20,000 RPMs. You don't want to do that because that could damage a fan bearing. Additionally, you want to be safe with spraying down a component like a motherboard that has very delicate items, especially the socket, where there are fine pins that are sticking up off the board. You don't want to hit that with 150 psi. So usually when I'm using my air compressor over here, I'll crank it down to about 40-50 psi. That's a safe pressure, won't hurt anything, plus it'll help remove the junk. So let's grab our dusting tools and get these parts dusted off. Also guys, one other tip while doing dusting, especially on parts that you have no idea where they came from, get yourself one of these masks. They're real cheap. You can find them anywhere, like at your Home Depot or even like a grocery store, but you definitely don't want to be breathing in someone else's dead skin or cat hair or whatever. So protect yourself. I'm actually going over to open up my garage because that graphics card had so much nasty stuff in it. I can feel it in my nose, in the air, so I'm gonna let some nice fresh air in here real quick. Whew. All right, so here are the remaining items that I use for cleaning for part 2. So right here we have some alcohol swabs that I got from Kroger. These are more of like your medical alcohol swabs, but if you can find larger ones, great. These are pretty small, but they're still handy and they're extremely cheap. So that's why I get them, and they come in little dual packets like this. So I just tear them open and use them to clean down my larger surface area parts like this on the motherboard, where I'd be wiping across the heat sink or pull the RAM chips out, wipe them down, etc. Even good for removing thermal paste off of a CPU. So additionally, they're good at jamming into fan blades and wiping those down, which I will be doing here for the video card, and get it real cleaned up. I always have isopropyl alcohol. This is more for the finishing cleaning that I would do on something like getting the remaining thermal paste off. And actually you'll see where I use this to clean out a socket and just literally dump it in, just get it all cleaned up. Additionally, here I got a soft brush. You could use like a paintbrush, you know, whatever. This is basically mainly for just getting into areas like on your motherboard that are kind of hard to get into, kind of knock away the dust, get along, you know, PCIe slots, get into the RAM chips, and even what you'll see me do is get inside the socket and very gently brush. So you definitely want to make sure you've got something that's very soft to the touch. You don't want this to be like a hard steel material that's gonna, you know, be pulling away or bending the more delicate parts of your PC components. And last here, I got some Q-tips that I also use for cleaning. Mainly where I would use a Q-tip is just getting into areas that I can't actually like get my fingers in with an alcohol swab or something like that. Though be careful with a Q-tip. They can pull apart easily, so if you're pulling them across your like motherboard, for example, and you happen to catch some pins, it's going to shred it. So be careful with that. And if that does happen, not a big deal. Obviously you want to blow away the remaining material if something does get caught on a component or something like that. Alright, so I thought I'd quickly just take you in and give you guys the after of the video card cleaning. So we are nice and cleaned up. There was some nasty dirt and debris caught inside underneath the heatsink and inside the heatsink. All that's been nicely cleaned up. Don't have any sign of that. I mean, this was a full teardown. Fan blades are perfectly cleaned up, and we don't have that grime layer along the shroud or anything like that anymore. So everything is looking good. So, as mentioned, you know, my intention of doing this product cleaning is to make them look brand new. So let's move on to the motherboard. It's not nearly as bad of a case, but it does have some layers of dust, and I specifically, like I mentioned, want to focus on how I clean out the CPU socket, because I have had to actually do that in the past, where I had some debris that got caught inside the CPU socket. Luckily didn't do any damage, but I had to remove it and clean it, because at that time I had some memory modules that were not being read. So it may be something that you have to do, so I figured let's go ahead and cover that too. Alright, so for the motherboard, I'm going to focus on cleaning everything around the socket and do the socket last. So I'm using the CPU to protect anything from getting in there that I might knock loose and free while I'm doing cleaning around. I am though going to remove this thermal paste real quick so I'm not getting my hand on it or spreading it anywhere, and that's just as simple as grab a paper towel and just kind of wipe it down. Now we are going to get into the meat of the most delicate part of the cleaning process. So we're going to remove the processor. Again, this is taking into consideration that you need to go to this level of cleaning. I'm only doing it for demonstration purposes, but just gently remove the processor. And in the socket, if you look at it from particular angles, with Intels, the pins go one direction and then another. So as I'm motioning with my hand, these bottom and left side layer pins are angling in this direction, kind of more up and to the right. And then you can actually spin the motherboard box around or whatever to get a angle looking at it coming from this angle, and the pins are going the opposite direction that way. So this is where the brush with alcohol is particularly necessary. In order to clean it, it's really as simple as just being very delicate and just wiping down the pins with the brush. You want to be sure to apply zero additional pressure or force here. What you're trying to do is just kind of wipe clean the area. You can get inside as well. And it doesn't even hurt to pour some alcohol inside. I'll just add a few drops. Oop, a little too much. Okay. Now we have plenty of alcohol inside. Again, you kind of want to wipe in the direction of the pins. Do not wipe against them, you will bend them. Be very careful. Still looking pretty good from my perspective. I'm going to spin the motherboard around just to get a different angle to look at the pins. Make sure nothing looks out of place. What I'll even do is give you guys kind of the perspective look. There we go. See, what we want to do is we want to just look at the pins, make sure it all looks good. We don't see any debris. I'd say we've put a pretty substantial amount of alcohol in there for cleaning purposes. Spin this back around. Okay, now I'm going to cover that. I'm going to push the motherboard off to the side. Actually, let's see. Let's close the bracket for a moment. Okay, set the motherboard off to the side. Cleaning a CPU, especially an Intel one, is extremely simple. There's nothing to really be afraid of here as far as cleaning, so I'm going to take my alcohol wipe that I had here, and I had some extra thermal paste that couldn't quite get from earlier that I'm going to knock off. You want to try not to obviously touch the gold side where all the pin contact pads are. I think that's what I think the actual proper term is, contact pad of some sort. I'll have to possibly look that up, make sure I'm right, but you know what I mean. Just wipe down the IHS. Again, the top part. Looking pretty clean. Now, what I do from the other side, I don't use the brush here. What I use typically actually is just a Q-tip. I'll just kind of massage some alcohol into the area. These aren't in any particular direction, not like the socket. So these are all flat. And if you need to clean these areas, this is typically how I do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let that air dry, just set it off to the side in a kind of clean environment. And same thing with the motherboard and CPU. We still have some fluid I can see inside the socket. I'm going to completely open it up here. Again, just do a quick inspection. I don't see any bent pins because we were careful and wiped in the direction of the pins. So what we can do next is just flip the motherboard kind of upright so that it drains. Again, with isopropyl, it's going to dry out fast anyway. It's very fast evaporating, but to make sure you get, what I would do is I would let this sit for a couple hours, let it sit for an hour, then come back and check on it. Make sure it's all dried out. Really what we can do is set it upright. And we can spray it down gently with some air. I think my compressed air actually just went out, but what I would do is just kind of touch some air in there a little bit to let it dry out. Help kind of assist that process a little faster. So I'm gonna let it sit upright, let it drain, let it dry, and check on it in an hour. We are now officially in step 3, which is letting everything dry out. So with, again, as mentioned with isopropyl alcohol, it evaporates very quickly. An hour should be plenty of time. We're gonna let this sit for an hour and then come back and check on things. So really the last thing to do is just to get things put back together and test it out. All right, got everything put together on the table here. Just do a quick test boot after our thorough cleaning. Just make sure all the parts are still alive, which I fully expect they should be. Okay, fan spinning. All right, just do a quick double check on some things. Just gonna pull up CPU hardware monitor real quick. CPU package is 26 to 30. GPU's at 24. Everything's looking good. We didn't kill anything. Yeah. Alrighty guys, so that about wraps up this video. I hope you guys found this informative. The whole intention of this video is to definitely show you a full process that I use through and through for cleaned up parts, get them looking brand new, get them performing at their most top notch, and then get them ready for resale. So if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel. And also stay tuned, as we're gonna have these parts covered again in an upcoming video where I'm doing another budget build around the $300 mark that I think you'd enjoy. We'll catch you next time.